Personally, we think Cedar Point has the best coaster collection in the entire country. We love the park. We're so happy that's our home park. But that doesn't mean that we don't think that there are things that they can change about all those great coasters. So this video is all about one thing that we would change about every roller coaster to make it better.
Before we get into this video, the things that we're going to say aren't super realistic, and nor do we think are going to happen.
Well, some are realistic. It's not like they're impossible to happen.
No. They're not super unrealistic, but we don't think that they're going to happen. And this isn't trying to be like nitpicky on all the coasters. Obviously, they're all amazing, but this is just something that we would make better.
So we're going to start at the front of the park, work our way back. So let's start with Raptor. Raptor, I'm not a huge fan of it. You like it, but there's one thing that you think would make the ride completely better.
A very simple thing, but yet it makes a huge impact. It's the final transition going into the final brake run, because it is very rough, and it kind of like, since it's at the very end, it's like the last thing that you remember. So it's like, okay, that ride was really good, but that last transition, it was like, ow, it's very rough, it's very abrupt, and it's not comfortable at all.
As you can see here, you go through a double helix and then kind of go to like a little bank, and then boom, you like kind of like snap back to your left and into the brakes. And it is kind of violent, a little rough, and something that I think if they just smooth that out, it would probably be a lot better. Next up is Gatekeeper. Now, honestly, we had a hard time finding something that we would really change about this ride. We really enjoy it a lot. But if there's one thing, we would pull a little bit of inspiration from Thunderbird at Holiday World. And at the very end, instead of after the mid-course brake run, instead of having that like kind of just helix and then a little like pointless airtime hill, put like a 0G roll on that, just like what Thunderbird does. I think that would be like perfect right after the mid-course, and it would be something that would be a more memorable end to the ride and a better element rather than, instead of just like helix.
Like the helix is kind of fun because you go low to the ground, and the airtime hill doesn't really do anything, but the 0G roll, it is one of the best parts of Thunderbird, and it would be really cool if they had that on Gatekeeper. Moving on over to Wild Mouse. Now, one thing about Wild Mouse isn't the ride itself, but it's really the capacity and having a single rider line, because Wild Mouse does not have a single rider line. Now, for some reason, a lot of Cedar Fair parks just don't use those for some reason, but they shouldn't, especially for Wild Mouse. Like, Wild Mouse would really benefit from having a single rider line due to how it's set up.
Yeah, since there are only 4 riders per mouse or cheese. So there's a lot of times that you'll end up with like just 3 people in it or whatever. So a single rider line would help with capacity a ton with that ride and just really help out the ride altogether. So not all of these are specifically changing the ride. Some of them might be something like this, adding a single rider line.
Now this is definitely something that is like very realistic.
Realistic and very doable.
I don't think that they are going to, but it would definitely be really nice and really easy if they did.
Next up, we're going to go over to Blue Streak, the oldest coaster in the park, built in 1964. When it was originally built by PTC, it had buzz bars. Buzz bars they just come down like probably that far off of you and just give you crazy airtime. They got rid of those, and most like PTC trains are getting rid of buzz bars. Just like Comet at Hershey Park just recently put out new trains and they're getting rid of their buzz bars. But I realize that they're not going to do this, but getting rid of the newer PTC trains and going back to the older buzz bars, it would be crazy airtime because, I mean, Blue Streak gives some of the best airtime.
Very underrated because no one really talks about how good of airtime Blue Streak actually gives you. And those lap bars, for most people, they are pretty loose and they're not too bad, but they can get a little tight sometimes, and a buzz bar would just be a whole lot crazier.
Change the experience of the ride altogether. Next up is Val Raven. Now, this would be really easy to do. All we're saying to do is simply add 23 feet.
Very easy. You could do it in an hour, probably.
Yeah, no problem. But seriously, adding 23 feet to it, like what we mean. So our point is that in 2016, when Val Raven was built, it was the world's tallest dive coaster. And then Cedar Fair, 3 years later in 2019, up at Canada's Wonderland, built Yukon Striker that was just 22 feet taller at 245 feet than Val Raven. So I think just that Val Raven still had the record and then Canada's Wonderland was just a little bit short, I think that would make Val Raven just a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, because Yukon Striker is a lot better than Val Raven. Next up is Ruguru, and Ruguru we think would benefit from getting vest restraints because the headbanging on it, personally, I don't find it to be a huge issue, but you do. I don't mind it, but vest restraints would eliminate all of the headbanging and make it a more enjoyable ride. Now, no floorless coaster has gotten vest restraints yet.
Moving along to Iron Dragon, the old aero suspended coaster. Now, not much can be done to this coaster as far as we're concerned, but one simple thing would be adding the fog back. Back in the day, there used to be fog all along the lake, and you would come down through the second half.
Yeah, like the whole double helix, you'd be in fog, and that was really cool.
Yeah, but now they got rid of it for whatever reason. So I think that just something like adding the fog, something just simple like that.
Fog was great. I love the fog. I love the fog.
Yeah, it would make the ride just that much better.
Next up is Top Thrill 2, and something now probably the only thing on the list that we really thought could actually happen. And it is having an airtime hill on the launch track.
Yes.
Like, we've ridden Pantheon at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, and the best part of that ride is the swing launch with the airtime hill in the middle. Top Thrill 2 has a swing launch, but not the airtime hill in the middle, which we really wish it did, because the airtime you get, especially going backwards, is absolutely unreal. And having just that one airtime moment would, I think, make it a lot better. Now, obviously, we haven't ridden Top Thrill 2 yet, but it would still, we figure an airtime hill would make it better.
Moving on to Corkscrew. Anytime that you ride Corkscrew, you get in and you're in this big, uncomfortable, old, clunky aero train, and it just makes the experience, like, I mean, personally, since I'm a little bit taller and you're taller, like, the headbanging isn't a big deal because we're above the restraints. So a lot of people do complain about the headbanging on it. But for us personally, since it's our list and what we're talking about, we don't really care about that. But just changing the trains.
They're very uncomfortable, and it still, like, bangs your neck a little bit, and it's very uncomfortable, especially over the corkscrews. Yeah, it's just very uncomfortable.
Now for the original Hypercoaster, Magnum XL200.
One of the best coasters in the park.
Oh, God. Now, we disagreed with this. So this is going to be one thing that's going to be a little bit different for me and a little bit different for him. I say a complete retrack. Just completely retrack that thing. Make it smooth. You can keep the same layout, obviously. I don't mind the layout necessarily, but just like the roughness and the jerkiness, it would be so much better with a complete overhaul on a retrack. But you think only a small part should
I
be
like
retracked.
how it is. You got other smooth coasters at the park, and obviously I love smooth coasters, but you have other smooth coasters at the park. So in Magnum, it just has so much character with how just jerky and janky it is. So a complete retrack, I just don't think I would like it that much. However, there is one part after the double helix that I would say retracking it would help a ton. And because it's just very, it's like the one part of the ride that's very rough, and
It's
really
rough like the rest of the ride, yeah.
the rest of the
I
ride
agree.
is rough, but this part in particular is like, okay, that's maybe a little too rough. Moving on down to Gemini. Now, Gemini is just very simply making it race every time, having the two trains by each other when they're supposed to be by each other. Now, Gemini isn't as bad as something like Twisted Colossus, which I know just doesn't race at all anymore. But we have like a game where we pass $1 back and forth, and we sit
dollar
on
game.
and we
Boom, boom, boom.
and we sit on different sides of we sit on different trains, and sometimes one of us will be like way far ahead, and we never actually pass each other. Which is like the whole point of Gemini is to like high five the other train. So
They take away the best part of the ride whenever they trim one train like really hard, and
it just could be managed. Like, yeah, just find a way and have it race every single time. Now, it's not going to be 100%, I guess, but
I think it takes more work for them to get it to not race than to get it to race. I would think. I don't know. Next up is the original Giga Coaster, Millennium Force. Now, the one thing that enthusiasts in particularly complain about this ride, besides the lack of airtime and the straight track at the end,
and it being forceless and the slow lift hill.
yeah, all that stuff. Besides that, The one thing that people complain about the most is the capacity. Now, Millennium Force, Intamin promised Cedar Point about 1,300 people an hour for Millennium Force whenever they first built it. And I don't think it's really gotten any more than like 800-900 people an hour or whatever. But either way, I think that I know a way that you could increase capacity. Now, as soon as you come into the last overbank turn and you hit some trim brakes right before the waiting block, that's the block zone right before the unloading station. Now, those are just trim brakes. If that became a block zone and it could actually stop a train, I think that you would be able to dispatch the train out of the station like a good probably 10, 15, maybe 20 seconds faster than you can right now. Because right now, the third train has to be completely in that waiting block before they can dispatch the train. Now, this isn't I don't know. I don't know if this is 100% true, but it makes sense to me. And I like all year I've kind of like looked at it and we brought it up.
Looking at it, yeah.
We brought it up in line like numerous times. I'm like, what if that thing became a block zone? I think that they could dispatch the train a little bit faster and up the capacity. So that's what I think. So you guys leave comments down below what you think about that. And while you're down there leaving a comment, you can go ahead and like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and you can go down in the description and you can find in there a link to a channel membership page, and you can be like one of these people right here that joined our channel membership. They get things like exclusive videos, exclusive shout outs, just all sorts of exclusive content, and they help the channel more than we can express. So thank you to all our channel members. Thank you so much. You guys are appreciated. But now back to the video. We got 3 more roller coasters.
3 more.
Next up, Mine Ride.
Mine Ride. The thing that we would do to fix Mine Ride is to tear it down and build a GCI or a Gravity Group coaster.
That's what I would do.
I don't absolutely hate Mine Ride like some people do.
I do.
But I mean, I think I would choose a GCI or a Gravity Group over Mine Ride.
I just think that's the perfect spot. You take that out, you take out Snake River Falls, and then you have the island there that no longer has the Forbidden Frontier anymore. So now you can put some of the track and some of the layout on the island. I just think over the water, I just think it's the perfect location for an elite wooden coaster. So Mine Ride, bye-bye. You can go as far as I'm concerned.
Next up, Maverick. Now, how are we going to make Maverick better? Well...
How? Because it's one of my favorite coasters.
Yeah, well, Maverick is a little bit older. It was built in 2007, and it's a little bit of an older Intamin. It has those old generation Intamin trains with like Storm Runner, and some other coasters have those with the over-the-shoulder restraints. But Intamin has completely changed up their trains as of late, and now they don't have the over-the-shoulder restraints. They have just a lap bar with no seatbelt, which is a lot more comfortable than what Maverick has now.
Last but not least, my favorite overall roller coaster, both of our favorite roller coasters at Cedar Point, is Steel Vengeance. Now, there isn't much that you could do. I love launches, so I don't know, you could put a launch up the lift hill or something.
And have it broken down every single day and have them put a lift hill after a few years, replace the back with a lift hill. So you could do that.
You could do that, but that is not what we are choosing for this video. We are going to say something as simple as moving those free lockers to the outside of the queue. Now, Steel Vengeance, my favorite ride, sometimes I just don't want to ride it because the line is just impossible.
Especially, like, we love marathoning coasters, and a coaster as good as Steel Vengeance, you'd want to marathon over and over again. But it's kind of like tiring going through the line.
Oh my God.
And it makes you not want to rewrite it because it's such a big pain when like the lockers outside could be free and like people can live without their phones for like an hour. It's not a big deal. So have some free lockers outside. I mean, they already have lockers out there, so I'm sure you can make those free somehow. So make those free, and then people can put their stuff in there and then live without their phones for an hour or so. And then ride Steel Vengeance, and I think that would be better.
Well, you couldn't make those lockers free because those are from a third party, but you can put the free lockers that you do have.
You hack them and make them free.
Well, there you go. But it's just such an unenjoyable experience having to wait in that line. You guys, anyone that's ridden Steel Vengeance since they put in those lockers knows exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So that is it. We've gone through now we skipped over the a couple kiddie coasters, and we skipped over pipe screen.
Because it
roller
isn't a
coaster.
roller coaster, it's simply just not a roller coaster, so these are making Cedar Point roller coasters better.
Okay, so that is it for this video.
Obviously, none of this stuff is going to happen again.
All of it's going to happen.
All it's going to happen tomorrow. Exactly.
So be on the watch out for all of these things to happen.
Exactly.
So thank you for watching. We appreciate it. We'll see you guys right here next time on Beach Cliff Studios.